Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of Port Clinton City Council on March 12, 2013. Tonight I would like to welcome the We Blow One Cub Scout Pack 361. And tonight we have the great honor of them leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if they would all like to come forward and stand up front.
You can go right through there.
And once they get started, I'd ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, the Lord's Prayer, and a moment of silence for our men and women serving overseas. So whenever you're ready, boys, we can start.
Scout salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father, who art in heaven,
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ron Hockman.
Present.
Deborah Greenbaum. Kathy Boston.
Present.
Mike Snyder.
Present.
Mark Cobbler.
Present.
Randy Lipstrop.
Here.
Nicole DeFreitas.
Present. Thank you. There's some chairs just beyond the door. If you want to bring those in and sit down, please feel free. Council, before you, you have the minutes of the February 12th regular meeting. I'd like to take a motion to accept the minutes as written.
So moved, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Madam
Thank you, Mrs. Snell. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
I would like my name to have 2 P's and 1 O instead of 2 O's and 1 P.
Isn't that a movie?
Just saying.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The chair notes that certification has been received regarding compliance with the rules of notification of this meeting. Mr. Oxter, did you want to say anything about your group, or?
I appreciate Detective Carpenter giving us a tour, police station, and Mayor giving us a tour. I appreciate their support. Thank you very much.
Did you guys want to stay for the whole meeting? Or?
It's up to you guys. Could be lengthy, depends how windy everybody is.
It's completely up to you.
Okay.
But this is a good meeting
Eye-opener.
point if you'd like to. But otherwise, you're welcome to stay. We will now go to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple different correspondence I'd like to bring your attention. Just yesterday, I received a letter from the Ottawa County Housing Authority from Ms. Trish McCartney, the president of the Ottawa County Housing Authority, asking for a, excuse me, looking to reappoint Reverend Bob Butcher to the Board of Directors. The term would be from January of this year till December of 2016. He graciously agreed to continue service and brings 8 years of experience to this appointment. With that, the appointment being in my hands, I will forward that and appoint Mr. Bob Butcher to another term. Excuse me. On another note, the Village of Elmore has offered an invitation to attend the Mayor's Summit on Thursday, April 11th. The summit will be open at 5:30. Dinner will be served and provided for the representatives from the city. This invitation came from Mayor Lowell Crumnow. Excuse me. What I would ask is that if any of the council people are interested, please contact Jen Porter so that we can get a amount of people going and we could forward on our SBP. That is all, Madam President.
Thank you. Auditor's report.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to remind everyone that I sent out the month-end reports for February 2013 very early last week. So if you did not get those, please let me know. I have noticed that I've gotten a couple of emails bounce back to me. So if that's you and you have not received the reports, please let me know. I'll make sure we can get those to you. That is it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Nothing tonight, Madam President.
Thank you. Law Director's report.
I passed out at your places an ordinance number 13 tonight to have you look at. If you would add that to the agenda, that was requested by the mayor and the safety service director. It doesn't need to be passed tonight. It's in regards to filing an application for some transportation enhancement funds for the sidewalk along West Lakeshore Drive. I believe the deadline for submission of the application is May 1st. May 1st. And then at the conclusion of the regular meeting, I'd like to ask council to have an executive session tonight to talk about some pending litigation that the city is involved in. That's all I have.
Thank you. Safety Service Director's report.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to make a note that cemetery cleanup is moved to the March 18th instead of the 15th. Guys have something to do on that day, so we're moving it to the 18th. Items can go back on the graves on March 20th or after. Obviously, Maple Street has started. We talked about that the other day. The water line and street replacement is underway. And I know there was something in the paper, but just so everybody knows, 6th and Jefferson, the traffic light is coming out there. So what we have to do is put it on flash and temporary stop signs for 90 days. That will start on March 22nd. That's when we will put that intersection to a 4-way, red flashing lights, and 4 temporary stop signs. And that's all I have tonight, Madam President.
Fire Chief's report.
Nothing tonight, Madam President.
Thank you. Under correspondence, do you think I skipped the?
He was all prepared. He was prepared.
Oh, does the police chief have anything to report tonight?
Nothing tonight, Madam President.
Well, Coach.
That's good.
Under correspondence, I have an NPDES permit to discharge to state waters. The name of the applicant is Faruqi Patel, and he's doing business as Bayshore Inn, which is located on 2149 Eastmill Road. The receiving stream is an unnamed tributary to Lake Erie. Again, if you wish to comment, need to do so within 30 days of yesterday. And the clerk will have the address and where your complaint can be sent to. I also have from Lake Erie Shores and Islands a letter from Mr. Fletcher outlining the events of last year, and if you'd like to see that report, again, the clerk will have that. Once again, this is from the Department of Commerce, Division of Liquor Control. It's that time of the year when all of the permits have to be renewed, and so I would ask the Emergency Services Committee to report at next council meeting, if you would get with the police chief and find out if there's any objections to any of the permits that we currently have.
Certainly.
Okay. I would take a motion to accept the correspondence as stated, plus the planning and development minutes of March 5th and the auditor's report, which you received by email.
So moved, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Madam President.
Thank you, Mrs. Mel. Any discussion? All those in favor?
I just wanted to note that I made a last-minute correction to those minutes, simply adding the name of a person who attended the meeting that had been left off, so I forwarded that to Tiffany.
Oh, okay.
Correction.
So she has the correct
Yes.
one. Okay. Thank you. Any objection? No. All those in favor, let's try that.
Aye.
Thank you. We will now go to the readings of ordinances and resolutions. Would the clerk please read by title and summary only, ordinance 07-13.
Ordinance 07-13. An ordinance establishing a video service provider fee to be paid by any video service provider offering video service in the city of Fort Bragg. Authorizing the Director of Safety and Service to give notice to the video service providers of a video service provider fee and declaring an emergency.
Does council wish to take any action this evening on ordinance 07-13, Mr. Counselor?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to table ordinance 0713 to the next meeting.
Thank you. I have a motion to table ordinance 0713 till the March 26th meeting. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Benko. Any discussion?
The Finance Committee would like to is wanting to table this ordinance till the next meeting as we do a little more research on fees in surrounding communities.
Any further discussion? Mr. Snyder?
Madam President, I'm going to excuse myself from any discussion or voting on this topic, as there may be a perceived conflict in my private sector job.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Mr. Ackerman?
Mr. Copper, would those fees then have an effect on the billing of our constituents in town? Is that the reason we want to look at those?
Well, the fees are what the service, the video service provider pays us, and I guess that would be up to their discretion whether those fees are.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Nicole DeFreitas.
Yes.
Randy Lipscomb.
Yes.
Mark Hoppler.
Yes.
Mike Snyder.
Abstain.
Kathy Mount.
Yes.
Deborah Banko.
Yes.
Ron Ackerman.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 07-13 has been tabled to the 326 meeting. Will the clerk please read by title and summary only, ordinance 08-13.
Ordinance 08-13, an ordinance creating an economic development fund for the city of Fort Clinton, Ohio.
Does council wish to take any action this evening on ordinance 08-13? Ms. Baker?
Madam President, I move that we adopt ordinance 08-13.
I have a motion to adopt ordinance 08-13. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lipstrom. Any discussion? Mr. Ackerman?
Yes, Madam President, I'd like to thank the committee who's done an excellent job at pursuing this and keeping it at the forefront of what they've been doing. I think this ordinance is going to be very helpful for our city, so thank you very much.
Ms. Baker?
You're welcome, Mr. Ackerman. And I should add that essentially it's 2 years' worth of planning and development committee who have worked on this issue since we started on it last year. So there have been several council members key to its implementation, including former Councilman Hatfield, Councilman Lipstraw, and this year's planning and development committee members, Councilman Koppler and Councilman Snyder. And I would like to note formally that at the last committee meeting, the Council Planning and Development Committee did vote unanimously to recommend that council approve the ordinance to establish an economic development fund, and I have the signed recommendation here. And I would just like to add that this is to create an economic development fund that is going to be used for a broad range of economic development purposes. This is essentially the first time that a separate fund has been created for the idea of long-range investment in economic growth in the city and jobs growth in the city. And there are, however, still a number of things that need to be worked out until this is actually a functional fund. We need to pass an ordinance establishing funding sources for the fund, and also would wind up passing different enabling ordinances for different programs that might be funded from the fund, which would include possibly a revolving loan program, business incubator services, other types of consulting services that might be warranted for different projects, perhaps some sort of grants program for local businesses. There are a whole range of possibilities that are being discussed by council. So by all means, if anybody in the community has input regarding what types of programs they would like to see, certainly I welcome them to provide that to council so that we can make that a part of the ongoing discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mike Snyder.
Yes.
Mark Koppler.
Yes.
Randy Lipscomb.
Yes.
Deborah Banko.
Yes.
Ron Ackerman.
Yes.
Kathy Mount.
Yes.
And Nicole DeFreitas.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 08-13 has been adopted. We have no second readings of ordinance and resolutions, and I would now entertain a motion to put ordinance 12-13 on tonight's agenda for its first reading.
So moved, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Thank you, Mrs. DeFreitas. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trevor Banko,
Yes.
Nicole DeBreyes,
Yes.
Randy Lipstraw,
Yes.
Ron Ackerman,
Yes.
Mark Hopler,
Yes.
Mike Snyder,
Yes.
Kathy Mount.
Yes. Thank you. Would the clerk now read by title and summary only ordinance number 12-13?
Ordinance number 12-13. An ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Safety and Service to submit an application to the Ohio Department of Transportation for transportation enhancement funds for the West Lake Shore Drive sidewalk project and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action this evening on ordinance 12-13? Seeing none, that will be moved for its second reading to the March 26th meeting. We will now go to business from the floor. Mr. Coppler.
Thank you, Madam President. First off, I'd like to say I was at the, last Saturday, I was at the Fort Clinton Fullbackers Wild Game Feed. It was a fantastic time, and we plan on making this a yearly event, so if you get a chance next year, you should think about showing up there. It was a great time. They did really well. The food was great. So we'll move on to, at the last regular council meeting, Mayor Leone, you mentioned that you'd like to hear a council member's reaction to Mr. Rose's presentation on February 20th. And I do have a few comments in regards to that presentation. I must say the people that I have talked with that know Mr. Rose or have dealt with Mr. Rose have had good things to say about him. And it was great to see that a developer was taking interest in the downtown and the waterfront. But I have a few reservations, starting with how this project has been brought to this point. As some of you know, last year, council members, and specifically Planning and Development Committee, were discussing the possibility of hiring JMBM Law Firm to assist in locating developers for the Waterworks property. Now, this is one area of expertise for this firm. And they would have cast a large net, I'm going to stay with the fishing theme, to find an array of developers that could bring different ideas to the property. And there were many heated meetings throughout last summer, until finally ordinance 32-12 was brought to council for first reading on August 28th. Now, Mayor Leone, you weighed in on the matter at the next meeting on September 11, 2012, and I'd like to read a few of your comments. These were taken off of a audio file that's kept by the clerk of council, and I made a public records request for this audio and for two others. And this is off the mayor's report. Back then in 2007 and after that, we heard about how the city of Port Clinton needs an anchor. We've got to have something to draw everybody to this area. I ask everyone, take your blinders off, take a look at that waterfront. That's your anchor. That's what makes us unique to anywhere else. Why would you destroy that? We can continue to look for that magic pill. What I mean by that is you think that the development of the waterfront is going to save Port Clinton. I hate to say this, but you're sadly mistaken. That's a pipe dream and nothing more than that. You can put up a hotel there. When you look at the hotels we got now, are they filled during the winter time? Is that creating year-round business? I don't believe so. You can put up a convention center. Gotta be honest with you, if I'm gonna have a convention, I'm gonna need something for the families to do. I'm probably gonna go to Sandusky to Kalahari so I can put my kids in the water park. We can have my meetings and they get a family outing. I also heard about how there are so many different storefronts that are empty right now. You know, in the city of Port Clinton, there are two. They're being filled. I don't believe that working with a developer on the waterfront is going to help them, because in all reality, if you start today, it's a 5 to 10 year process to get that up and running. That's if we're lucky. That's if we can come up with the money to deal with the infrastructure. And lastly, the fact of the matter is we have a responsibility, and I ask you to think strong and hard about that responsibility and what that means. It's not about personal agendas. I don't think anybody has one, I hope, but I don't like what I'm reading. I don't like what I'm hearing. Matter of fact, I'm very disgusted with meetings that I've been present at. Those were some pretty tough comments that you made, Mayor. But the mayor's comments notwithstanding, council passed ordinance 3212 by a 4-3 vote on September 25th. Subsequently, the mayor vetoed the ordinance at the next city council meeting. Now, council members that had voted for the ordinance were kind of taken aback by the mayor's veto. Council members, like myself, wondered if we could possibly change the minds of one of the councilmen that had voted against the ordinance, because a fifth vote would be needed to overturn the veto. Business leaders in town were ready to assist by showing up and offering support for overturning the veto, and then we got another shot. One by one, we were asked to meet with the mayor, and we learned that he had been in contact with Mr. Rose since July of last year. So for me, it's difficult to figure out why, Mayor, you would have let us waste our time and energy discussing and arguing over this ordinance when you could have simply let us know that you have been approached by a developer, basically right from our own backyard, back in July. And this project flies in the face of all the concerns you mentioned on September 11th, and now you support it. So I've got to say that's a little bothersome. Be that as it may, Mr. Rose is here, and he gave a presentation on February 20th in regards to his vision of reviving downtown Port Clinton. So let's look at what's been proposed to us. Now, mind you, I am pro-development. One of my reasons for running for city council in 2009 was to see if we could bring the right development to that property. And I realized that what I'm about to say, I risk it being said that Koppler is not a team player. But I am an independent thinker, and my concerns are for the people of Port Clinton, and those specifically in Ward 2. And there are legitimate concerns regarding this project. I've had some time to look over the harborfront concept. I've done some research of my own, and I've listened to the presentation several times. I've tried to envision a fishing lodge with corporate and executive charters as the economic engine that will revive our downtown. A fishing lodge is going to be the economic engine. A fishing lodge with corporate and executive charters is going to be the economic engine to revive our downtown. Now, corporate charters were pretty strong up until the 1980s, and then tax laws changed. They couldn't be deducted, and they fell out of favor. And so I wonder, how many fishing trips are they going to take out of there to revive our downtown? 20, 40, 60 a day, every day? So what and who do you see at fishing lodges? You'll see mostly a bunch of guys getting together to get away from work and family for a week of fun and relaxation. Some of the lodges that I looked up did feature spas, which I presume is an attempt to lure more women to enjoy a lodge. But what you don't see are young children. The idea that a fishing lodge can be a 9-month attraction for families just might be a stretch. In fact, at the February 20th presentation, they talked about this being the hub and families going to Sandusky, to Cedar Point, or to one of the water parks, or they could go to the islands. And if you look at the concept drawing, you'll notice there's a lodge, docks, pool, and a beach, derby pond, festival promenades, a public amphitheater. Then there's 12 buildings in the center. Those are condominiums. Now, I tried to get Mr. Rose and Mr. Krebs to go into detail on those buildings, but they said it's just a concept. Ms. Benko pressed the issue, and they did say they were condos, but again, they wouldn't go into detail because it's just a concept. I've also heard that there's been nothing but positive comments about this proposal, and I've seen the emails that we've all been sent. But I've taken a different approach these last several weeks by going out in Ward 2 and talking with the residents. I went out to talk with residents that I had identified 3 years ago as pro-development. And I asked them if they'd seen the proposal and how they felt about it. Now, I got to admit, most knew very little about the proposed development. They didn't see a problem with lodges and docks. They were unsure about the amphitheater and the festival promenade area they thought might be too small. But when they found out the 12 buildings were to be condos, that's when they reacted strongly. They do not want condominiums. In fact, 78% were against putting condominiums on the property, and an even higher percentage don't want the city to sell the property. Now, some said that the city should see if Mr. Rose would build a lodge and do a downtown facelift and not build the condominiums. However, even the lodge itself is a condominium development of its own. This is a large-scale condominium development, and the question should be, is this going to be the best use of that property? I have no problem with having the city work with Mr. Rose, and it's good to see a developer from our own area interested. And while a majority of residents in Ward 2 told me they would like to see the property developed, they've been quite clear that they do not want to see a condominium development. Those that elected us expect and deserve that we will listen to them as well as to the other parties interested in this project. Those that elected us deserve to be properly informed. Council and the administration need to remember that we're to be their voice and to do their bidding. So let's make sure we get this right, because we're only going to get one chance. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Mr. Ackerman.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to remind everybody that Mondays is a great day to go to different meetings if you have the time available. Monday, the 18th, the West End Conestoga Group meets at the New Baton. So if you haven't had a chance to get inside there to see that building, we meet in the cafeteria and we work at helping out a great neighborhood. Monday the 25th, the Friends of the Cemetery meet at Ida Roop Library. That's at 6:30. And by the way, the West End Conestoga meeting is at 6. And speaking of the Friends of the Cemetery, if you had a chance to read the Sandusky Register today, they made the front cover of that paper talking about their paving project for the cemeteries. Once again, if you would like to know more about that paving project, attending the Friends of the Cemetery meeting at Ida Roop on the 25th would be beneficial to you. And the last meeting, unfortunately, takes place on a Tuesday, not a Monday. That will be the next Parks, Recreation, Cemetery meeting. And one of the items that we're looking at is the renovation of the West End Park. So if you have any comments or suggestions about that, please feel free to contact me. You can do that either through the city's website, or you can contact me at 419-285-6630 and leave me some suggestions about what to do with the renovation of the park. Please don't give me any other suggestions. If you have any other good suggestions for the city, I'll take those too. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Madam President. I appreciate the ability to speak.
Mr. Carvalho, just asking if you had a copy that you can read to the clerk since you wrote the statement.
Sure.
Ms. Bainville.
Yes, I also wanted to make a few comments about the question that the mayor asked us in email as far as our opinion of continuing to work with Mr. Rose. I support the city opening some sort of discussions with Mike Rose. However, while there's much support for working with Mr. Rose and admiration for his reputation and accomplishments with other downtowns, I do not believe we should, in hurried fashion, blindly lead the city into a project without the benefit of more concrete knowledge. To date, we've only heard and seen concepts which are based on outcomes in cities demonstrating far different economic indicators than Port Clinton. I believe this council needs to fully evaluate information such as a full proposal and market study from Mr. Rose and an economic impact study. Such information will allow council and community members to understand the revenue, business growth, and number of jobs the project might generate. I also would encourage council to continue considering input from the community. There is a lot of interest in working with Mr. Rose, but many residents who have seen the initial concept have expressed strong concerns about the numerous standalone timeshare condominium buildings, the seasonal nature of the fishing lodge concept, and the small banquet hall proposed. The common theme from these residents, all of whom support development of Waterworks Park, is that the project will not be of a large enough scale or generate enough foot traffic to have year-round impact. I encourage council to take into account such concerns. I also have questions regarding the process. The mayor's email to council stated that he wanted council members' opinion, quote, as I continue with Mr. Wilbur's guidance in moving forward to negotiate some type of deal, end quote. So this made me wonder, has something already been negotiated, and if so, what? If not, what parameters will this council set to be used by the mayor in negotiations? For example, Mr. Rose first stated that he wants to purchase the property and then stated that he might be open to leasing the property through a public-private partnership. How the property to be developed is to be transferred to Mr. Rose is a fundamental term of any agreement. I think that council should openly discuss and agree on issues of such major significance so that council's direction may be included in the parameters used by the mayor in negotiating some type of deal. Certainly everyone wants to see Port Clinton thrive, It's our home, and we have all grown weary of the conversations that seem to stall every effort to bring about economic growth. However, exhaustion does not mean that the project we are discussing today is the correct project for Port Clinton. Only facts, specific plans, and open communication about the process will determine that. With respect to the questions that I had about where we are at in the process, we kind of received two conflicting emails because we first had the email from the mayor that referred to starting negotiations. Then we had a follow-up email that I received late today from Linda stating that this is about whether or not we get more information from Mr. Rose and proceed to some sort of committee. So could you please answer in more detail exactly where we're at?
Well, I think the email, first off, it was really meant to be quite simple. Is council in favor of trying to move forward and try to work with Mr. Rose to get some kind of opinion on what he thinks there? And it was stated about those are conceptual drawings, and that's exactly what they are. He doesn't have any definite plan. He does want to draw from the community. But is the council willing to move forward, or are they not? That was really the gist of the whole email.
I would tell you that my email too is probably not the most accurate. But that's exactly where we're at, just attempting to get council's approval. If you have more individuals that aren't interested in moving forward, then it's no reason to do so. But if the majority of council wishes the administration to move forward, that's all that we're trying to. That's the only information that I was trying to get.
Okay.
There's
I
nothing.
guess what I'm trying to determine, I guess, is what process are we looking at following then from here on out? Because it's been alluded to the fact that a committee might be set up to develop a full proposal. Who do you envision serving on such a committee?
Anytime it comes to time for committee, obviously the president of council would appoint or ask one of the council members to join in on that. Right now, I think this is a case where we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. None of us here know, including myself, doesn't know exactly what Mr. Rose is proposing on that property. And the option of sell versus lease is still up in the air. There have been no other meetings. There have been conversations over the phone. His concern was, is this council wanting to move forward or are they not? Because I guess basically what we just stated here, we don't want to waste anybody's time. If council doesn't feel as though they want to move forward with development of the waterfront, we're not going to waste this gentleman's time. Or ours, yeah. So as far as what's going on there, hasn't been discussed yet. But we have to approach him and say, we are, as a whole, we're wanting to move forward with some type of development on that waterfront. Years in the past, you talked about the history. There's a lot of going back and forth. This group did, this one didn't, that one wanted this one didn't. We don't want to relive that and split the city. We want to know, is council as a whole, with the comments that they've received from the constituents, do they want to move forward with this gentleman? It's just a pretty honest question. Please don't read so much into it.
Maybe not move forward isn't the right word. Maybe it's gather more information. We need to gather more information.
Well,
I think that's in the process. That's where we're at in this process.
I mean, I think what I'm hearing is that people are interested in working with Mr. Rose due to his reputation and his accomplishments with other downtowns. I'm also hearing a lot of serious reservations about the concept that he has proposed. So I think if we're moving ahead, I think it needs to be with the understanding that people are interested in opening discussions with Mr. Rose, but we need to proceed sort of deliberately through this, and not with the idea that just because we make a commitment to talking with him, that means that people somehow feel like they're railroaded into a commitment down the road. And that seemed to be some of the atmosphere that I thought that I was hearing from some community members. I think people weren't quite sure where we were in the process. They weren't sure if that, how final that concept was or how open he was to changing that concept. And so I guess that's I guess maybe what needs to be clear is Are we asking a decision that we would like to work with Mr. Rose, or is it some sort of approval for this concept? I think they're really kind of two separate issues in a lot of people's minds.
I think it's just asking if we can move forward, if we can go to the next step of making things a little more concrete for them, and then bringing that back and starting to whittle away and make some decisions. You know, maybe he's going to come back, maybe we're going to meet, he's going to tell us a few more things. We're going to bring that back to council, we're going to have somebody from council on the committee. And that may not be what we like, but we may go back and say, we'd like to see this or we'd like to see that. I think we just want permission to go to the next step, get some more information from him, because I think what he just gave us was a layout of the land, things that he could do, not necessarily would do or can do. And I think we need to get to the would and can.
Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to be personally difficult here. I'm just trying to sort of openly clarify what we're all doing.
No, I appreciate your comments. I mean, we need to, I think it's very important that we, for once, all be on the same page, all going in the same direction. And that's why I would tell you personally, I don't think we're even close to negotiating anything with Mr. Rose. I think he came, he made a presentation, and I think our next is to say, come in and tell us that, yeah, we like your idea, you piqued our interest. Come on in and tell us a little bit more. I think that's where we're at.
Okay, I mean,
it's my opinion if I think where we're at.
I would definitely agree that you want to make sure that the process is as transparent as possible. And I mean, I think also in terms of setting up any committees to work on a proposal, I think maybe we might want to consider doing something like that in terms of committees of a committee of the council committee of the whole, rather than setting up some sort of committee that is made up of community stakeholders from the get-go. I mean, I think there's a difference. We were talking about he's given us a concept, and now he needs to give us a full proposal. Is it, and I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but I mean, it seems to me there's different ways for that to go. I mean, for instance, if you did an RFP, you would be winding up getting back full proposals from different developers, and so you would have it as your starting point, not just a presentation from a developer and a concept, but you'd also have a full proposal in hand to look at. We don't have this. We don't have this with Mr. Rose. We've had a presentation on a concept, and now we're committing to working with one developer to do a full proposal. So the question then becomes, okay, you could just ask him for a full proposal and then evaluate that. Or your email indicated something about setting up a committee to work with him on developing a full proposal. And I just think, given the past history on this issue and how heated things have been and everything, that there's a difference between, say, working on a full proposal, having a committee working on a full proposal, and say having a committee working on the things after a contract has been negotiated. The small things like, okay, what's it going to look like, input on what's it going to look like architecturally, input on what the landscaping is going to be like, input on how the amphitheater layout is going to work. I think that's something that you could do with community stakeholders, but if you're talking about putting together a full proposal that's going to decide what the major components of the project are, and I think that's something that should be done by a council of the whole meetings or committee meetings that all council members and administration are present at, so that they're open to the public, and the public is participating in some of the meetings, maybe just witnessing others, but so that whole process of developing that full proposal is open to the community, because I think as anybody who has recollections of the past history of developing some of the plans that we've developed in the past, knows that if you wind up setting up a committee of stakeholders and you have two council members serving them on that committee, and 5 who are not, you ultimately wind up having a certain group of stakeholders who worked on the plan, who are very vested in the plan because they spent so much time developing it, and then other people who were not part of the plan and are just arriving at it near the very end of the process, and then that creates a lot of tension rather than having everybody's input all together from the beginning. So those are just some of my, off the top of my head, thoughts about things that might be considered in terms of looking at getting this process started.
I agree with a lot of what you said, and I will just add one little caveat. Sometimes it's hard to work with a developer and have their negotiations be public.
Well, contract negotiations, I understand, have to be done by the administration in private. I understand when you get to an actual contract negotiation that that's very different. What I was talking about was development of a proposal or a plan.
I appreciate the comments.
I do have something on another topic altogether, and that is that I think we've all been getting a lot of information from the Lighthouse Conservancy Group, and I am wondering if we are at the point where it is possible for council to formally consider what they're proposing now. It's my understanding that they're now proposing a temporary location on the waterfront so that they are no longer proposing all of the restrictions that they were previously. And they have an interest in moving ahead with that so that the project can be ready for the 2013 events in the fall. And so I'm wondering if there is a way, I guess, to express support for getting some sort of resolution on the table to look at accepting the Lighthouse for a temporary location and deferring any permanent plans for down the road, but if it can be at a temporary location that's not going to interfere with proposed development.
Actually, I sent a letter to Mr. Norgard, emails to Mr. Norgard today. I've been emailing with Mr. Thomas and with Mr. Norgard over the last week. And my last email with Mr. Norgard is that we're going to sit down with the Conservancy once we can determine the dates of when the trail is going to be put in. That's going to go around the Dewey Pond and across the back of the wetlands. And also the Army Corps of Engineers is going to do some lakefront enhancement and stabilizing of the shoreline in probably all 3 of the places that they've picked out. So we need to get some dates as to when those things are going to happen and how putting the lighthouse could impede or that issue. So once we get those issues solved, which we hope to come up with some dates rather quickly, we're going to meet with the Conservancy and talk about where it can exactly be placed and how we're going to do that. So we have been in conversation. So that was my last email with them.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate being updated on the status of that. And that's all I have tonight, Madam President.
This is now. Oh, Ms. Banko, did you read your statement to the clerk of the county?
I'll give her a copy.
Thank you.
I just want to say that I agree with Ms. Banko that I think that the council kind of shut out in the beginning of all this, but we didn't know that the mayor was negotiating with Mr. Rhodes. And had he come to us and said that he was negotiating, I think we all would have gone with me, you know. But so with that background and what's happened since, and I don't think any of us are against moving forward, and I don't think anybody is against Mike Rhodes. But I do think that Ms. Banker's idea of including the entire council, at least for a few meetings, to start getting on the right, since we don't have an RFP, and we never had, we didn't have any proposal where we set out different regulations that we wanted someone to answer, the developer. That's how it's normally done. So this is rather an unusual situation, and I think it would be good for council. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I know for myself that I think that we should all be brought together for some kind of a meeting to discuss what are important items to us and to our constituents as far as what needs to be set forth. So that's my comment on that.
Mr. Rose did make a comment that he would be willing to come out and make another presentation.
Oh, I'm sure.
And we may ask him to just come and do one in the council chambers.
I mean, I think he is, very willing to work with us, yeah. I get that idea. I just want to mention that the Laws, Rules, and Ordinance meeting will be March 26th at 6:30, and we're going to have a guest speaker. It's going to be Mr. Kent Johnson. He's going to talk to us about some laws, rules, and ordinances that we discussed. So. And he's right on top of that. March 26th at 6:30. Thank you. Also, the community garden meeting, the first, spring is just around the corner, as I told you. It's going to be at the Mel's House at 105 Hayes Avenue on March the 20th at 6 o'clock. And please come if you're interested in gardening, or if you think you might be interested in gardening. And we'll have cookies and coffee free. So thank you very much, Madam President. That's all I have tonight.
Mr. Snyder. Thank you, Madam President. Just a quick reminder that the Emergency Services Committee will meet next Tuesday at 5:30. That's the 19th. Just a quick reminder to all the folks out there in the various emergency services groups, law enforcement, fire, EMS, sign up for Emergency Services Olympics. Runs through the end of this month with events starting in April. Another reminder about the Kiwanis event that Mr. Koppler and I are working with our fellow Kiwanians with, the Circles of Influence. We're asking that anyone in attendance bring a canned food item so we can help the St. Vincent de Paul Food Pantry. We'll be collecting these food items throughout the month of March. The Easter egg hunt, Jen Porter wanted to remind everyone, the Easter egg hunt is going to take place on Saturday, March 30th at the courthouse lawn at 10 o'clock. She is in need of candy. If anyone's interested in dropping off candy, they can do it here at the City Hall. The fireworks fund, I have the contract in hand, well not right now, but it's at my office. We need $8,000 to $10,000 to put on the 4th of July. As it stands right now, we have just over $4,200. The drop dead date is the first part of May to determine whether or not we're going to have fireworks in the city of Port Clinton. Letters are being sent out, the calls are being made, plans are being made to have other fundraisers to try to arrange the additional funds needed. So if you're interested in writing a check with a lot of zeros, you can make that payable to, you like that? You can make that payable to the Port Clinton Chamber of Commerce Foundation. In the memo section, put the word fireworks. The address for the Chamber of Commerce is 110 Madison Street here in Port Clinton, and I'll give you a big hug. Was it last weekend that they did the climb? 2 weeks ago. Sometime in the past 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 Port Clinton firefighters competed over in Cleveland in Terminal Tower in the American Lung Association Climb for Clean Air. In full turnout gear, 45 pounds-ish of stuff, they climbed 42 flights of stairs. That's 802 steps. The 3 competitors, Jason Adkins, did that flight in 13 minutes, 31 seconds. Matt Horn did it in 10 minutes, 56 seconds. And Jay Edwards completed the 42 flights in 10 minutes, 37 seconds, which is amazing. The winner was just under 10 minutes, going up 802 individual steps, which is amazing. The tip from the chief comes from Fire Chief Kent Johnson. By show of hands, this past weekend was Spring Ahead. How many changed the batteries in their smoke alarms? Very good. Very good. I think that we have some batteries here if anyone is interested in picking up some batteries to change your smoke alarms and CO detectors. A couple quick questions related to the topic at hand. Mayor Leone, when did you first meet with Mr. Rose? When did you first know that he was interested in coming to Port Clinton and providing?
I cannot give you an exact date because I don't have that information.
Was it before?
It's been, go ahead.
But before or after we had the vote for John Dion?
It's a good question. I can't answer that off the top of my head. I believe it was before, but I'm not sure.
Okay, okay. And to Madam President and Ms. Long, I know there's 2 other people yet to speak yet, but I think they both submitted emails as I did. Have you heard anything tonight that leads you to believe, yes, you want to go ahead and start conversations with Mr. Rose, or no, you don't want to begin conversations with Mr. Rose.
I think we want to talk to him, and if it's him meeting with just a committee or meeting with the council.
Can you guys talk louder, please?
No.
Can you whisper louder, please?
My response to Mr. Snyder is yes, I think we still want to move forward.
Thank you.
And either meet with him individually or with the small committee, or meet with him with the council.
And my personal observation of Mr. Rose and knowing that I think he is willing to open up to ideas and concepts. I believe he has been in town. I've heard through the grapevine that he walked into Magruder Hospital and sat down at a few tables at lunch and walked into the library. I know he's made a few phone calls to some business leaders in the community, one of which I transferred to a business leader. So I think he's trying to get input from the committee and is open. I've not had direct contact with him, but is open to some of the thoughts that have been expressed here tonight at the meetings in the community. So I don't think what we saw on paper is set in stone. So that's just my opinion with that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment. You know, I'm new to council, and so I don't have all the background in the past negotiations and developments and different things, but a lot of time has passed, and I've read about it in paper and stuff, but while all this has been going on, our city's been going down the tubes. And so I just really hope that it seems like everybody likes Mr. Rose and they have faith in him, and so I just hope that we can really come together and move forward, because I come from a tourist background. I worked at the Visitors Bureau, and people would tourists. We love tourists. But people would come into the Visitors Bureau and wanted nothing to do with Port Clinton. It's the ghetto. We don't want to go there. There's nothing to do there, and it would just break my heart because I'm born and raised here and I love this city. So I just really hope that we can not have all internal fighting and all that, and work together and get a good proposal, and hopefully everybody's on board with, and move forward, because I do believe we need to do something here, because we need to do something. So that's Mr. Lipstra.
Not to be repetitive, but again, Mike Rose presented a concept. The concept includes embracing downtown, not just focusing on the waterfront, which I think is important. And the issue with JMBM, the RFP, an RFP had already been done. We'd already spent the money. The verbiage did not change from what our desire was to create a mixed-use development with use of public land and keeping it public. We had it on file. We already had it, the draft for it to be sent out. And it's a concept he presented, which is a template. You can tweak, you can add, you mold off of it. And it was clear that he made it clear that he wants the community to be involved, and he made it clear that the community needs to be involved, because if you don't have community buy-in, it won't be a successful project. And I think it's time to have conversation with them and to move on, and let's do something and get something done.
Our Mr. Police, our Fire Chief, Police Chief, would you give your name and address? Because the clerk needs to enter it into the record. Okay.
Name, Benjamin William Lucas. Address, 1931 North Carriage Lane.
Thank you very much.
Members of the audience. Mr. Yonke.
Jerry Yonke, 117 Cedar Street. Mayor and the auditor, does the city have the money to enter into a development agreement or even think of the idea of a development in Waterworks Park?
So we have something on the table, I really can't answer that. The proposal...
What can you guys afford?
The opinion of Mr. Rose is that, depending on how we work this, there would be no money out of the city's pocket.
Do what?
Those are his statements.
No.
There would be no money out of the city's pocket.
No cost to the city.
But yet, we do not have a proposal.
Yeah.
We have a conceptual drawing. I think Mr. Lipshaw explained it very well. There's nothing more than a drawing. We're just now having conversation or trying to ask the council, and we want to move forward and start talking with this gentleman. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know You guys are asking a lot of questions, but there's nothing going on yet, so.
Mr. Wilbur, what do you think of this so-called development in Waterworks Park? You're gonna have to be the last one to sign off on it.
Council's gotta be the one that does that.
And you're gonna have to advise them into this project.
I think there's a lot of work ahead before anything can happen, Gary. There's a whole lot of things that have to be looked at, have to be considered, have to be developed.
Do you remember back to the Puller project, how that went a couple years back?
Go back to some of the ones even before that, Gary.
Right, there you go.
And a lot of ground plowed.
Yeah.
Hasn't been much been fruitful from it yet.
Thank you.
That's what council, I think, is trying to do here, what I hear. They're trying to work together to make something.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes, hi, Alex Thomas, and you're from North Carriage Lane? That's in Catawba, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I'm Alex Thomas, and I'm from Catawba also, but I'm a Portland resident. I feel like I am, even though I don't vote here. And I'm with the Portland Lighthouse Conservancy, speaking unofficially. I've talked with Mayor Leone. You are all aware, of course, of our initiative on the lighthouse. And I wasn't going to speak back because I told Rich, shoot me if I say anything, but from the discussions, it's worthwhile talking about our very little piece of a pixel, a small piece. And I hear a lot about the resistance to initiative by a group of local citizens, most of which are from Port Clinton. And I have to admit that, Vince, you were not forthcoming with me, as I think a number of the council members mentioned, in terms of directly saying, no, we have other plans for the waterfront. You talked about ADA accessibility and other things, and I think that we have an opportunity for this lighthouse, which is a small piece. I did happen to speak because Linda talked about in an email to me that some of the difficulties of getting something like this going is that we have future development. Well, I called Mike Rose, and I had a very nice conversation with him on Thursday, or it was Friday. And it was about a half-hour conversation. And he mentioned a number of things. And number one, he says nothing on that waterfront, as long as it is temporary. And we have, as has been presented to you, and I have here, and you can all see this, it can be anywhere. The council can determine where this lighthouse is going to be. It doesn't have, and will not, as long, as Mike Rose said, as long as it does not interfere with future development. And indeed, we have acknowledged in the lighthouse development, because by the time you guys get done, it's going to be 5 years before anything is on that waterfront. You're not even at the point of talking to these people. And I talked to them because I called them on the phone. I looked on the website, and it said Mike Rose Development, and I called them and I chatted with them. And each of you could do the same thing. I can't believe that you're talking about it the way you are now. And so anyway, he said, you can put that anywhere on the waterfront as long as I'm putting 30, I don't know, after it gets over $150, I can't remember the money. He said, I'm putting over $30 million into this development. And he didn't talk about owning it or whether the city would own it or whether he would buy it. I don't think he really cares. I think he is excited about...
What's this guy's name?
Alex Thomas.
What's your address?
4107 Barclay Drive.
In Catawba.
Yes.
Mr. Yonke,
Yes, sir.
order. You're out of order.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
We're not at a Catawba
You are out of
Township
order,
trustee
Mr.
meeting.
Yonke.
We're at a city of Port Clinton meeting.
Mr. Yonke,
The chief of police is, oh yeah, okay.
Mr. Yonke, you're out of order.
You're right.
Please stop talking.
Go ahead.
Bottom line is, I think that Mike Rose is legitimate. He's the authentic deal. It's not up for me to be involved in whether or not he's authentic or not from your standpoint. That's above my pay grade. It's your pay grade. But from my impression, he said that if he were the person, because if it's not him, it ain't anybody right now, it's going to be 2 or 3 years before anything happens. Meanwhile, there is this pixel, this opportunity to put a small thing on the waterfront that's a part of our heritage. And I think we really ought to be involved, and we ought to be enthusiastic about it. We are independent, we are for whatever the council decides. So I really do hope, and I know it's a small thing, and it looks like it's just a personal thing, but it's not. It is about Port Clinton. We've lived here for 40 years. You've all lived here most of your lives. But this is a chance. We've been through the Jet Express. We've been through all the waterfront development, but this is one small thing. And I hope that we can meet any objection that you might have, and we will work cooperatively to see, without any cost to the city, that this is nothing going to be but a benefit to Port Clinton. We can ensure that it's continuance for the next 50 years, and I can promise you that.
I hope that I had conveyed, Mr. Thomas, maybe I didn't, to you and Mr. Norgard, that we are certainly willing and able. We just have these two things that are taking place in the spring, and it really affects where that lighthouse is going to go. So when we get those dates, I mean, but we just need to know what's going on.
No, let's just get down to the bottom line. You talked about it in an email today, because I've got the details on this. You talked about a development above Derby Pond and a walkway by the Corps of Engineers. Now, the Corps of
Engineers is going, they are going to enhance and stabilize that shoreline that covers all three places that you guys have suggested. They're going to be there working. We just need to know when, how long, and that's all I'm asked. That's all I've asked of you guys.
Now, you mentioned about the walkway.
Yes,
the walkway currently goes around a tree at the east end of Waterworks Park. I've got all the details here. That walkway is entirely independent of any place where this potential lighthouse could go. And so I appreciate, under your aegis and legitimate concern about the future, but that you're using this perhaps as a way to sort of delay the ongoing progress, because these are independent events.
If I was going to delay it, I would tell you that.
Okay.
Fairly honest person.
I will trust you on that.
I'm just concerned that we are going to have equipment on the land. You guys have spent an inordinate amount of time making this better and making this, restoring it. I would hate to see a dump truck, a crane, or whatever harm it, and I don't want it. That's why there's that work going on there. Just let us get those dates of the work and let you know.
And what timeline are we looking at when you talk about, we'll get back to you?
I don't know, a couple weeks.
If I could just clear up one thing for sure. You're talking about this can go at any area. The only thing that I have received from the owner is a proposal.
Well, you come tomorrow night, you'll hear from the owner.
I gave you your time. Please listen to what I have to say, please. What I have in my possession is this document stating latitude and longitude of exactly where he wants it to go, with some other language that speaks very specifically on if it has to be moved and other different topics. Something that was unacceptable. That's as far as it went.
Well, it sounds like backpedaling to me.
Mr. Britt, excuse me?
Sounds like backpedaling to me.
You call it what you like, sir.
That's what I call it.
Very good.
Anyone? Mrs. Douglas.
Yes, my name is June Douglas. I live in Fort Clinton at 318 Garfield Drive. Madam President, Mayor Leon, everyone else, the council members, I'm extremely nervous. I don't like talking in public, okay? According to what I've seen tonight, it looks as though this thing is going to go on our waterfront, according to Ms. Benko. Is it Benko? I can't see it. Mr. Kapler, I believe. I loved your statement, okay? Now I'd like to read mine, okay, if I can get through it, if you don't mind. It's short. All over the country, cities large and small are seeking ways to reinvent their communities with green space. Port Clinton should be no different. Just how friendly to the environment is Port Clinton? That's question number one. I moved here in 2009 because of the small town atmosphere. I started coming to the council meetings just to find out what was going on, and at the time, I felt things were doing well without my interference. Since 2009, I have seen a slow but steady improvement moving forward within the city. A real sense of community, struggling to reinvent itself, as many communities do with the people that have the means and vision to do so. I must say that I have been quite puzzled about this mysterious Waterworks Park. that I couldn't seem to locate it or even know where it was. I saw the sign, Waterworks Park, but for some reason I didn't see anything that resembled a park. Then I posed the question to a longtime resident. I guess I'm a little slow at times. You see, to me, the name implies trees, park benches, flowers, fountains of all shapes and sizes. A real green space for the public to relax and enjoy. Instead, I find out that I have spent many hours along the waterway watching my husband, my sister, and brother-in-law fishing and watching the boats go by, not even realizing I was at Waterworks Park. Okay, since the public meeting in February, I've spent many hours on the internet looking at the Ottawa County Auditor's photo of this park. What do I see? I see a long path along the lakeshore. What does it lack? Trees, benches, fountains, flowers, and most important, people. Parks are meant to be public green space. Those of you who have lived here all of your lives don't realize how important this park could be to development of Port Clinton's future if done correctly. When I found out that the prehistoric forest was closing down, I thought to myself, wouldn't it really be cool to see some of those wonderful pieces of art along the area of the lakeshore? That in itself would draw many people to the downtown area. Whether you know it or not, on Google Earth, Mystery Hill and the prehistoric forest are still there as places of interest, even though it is closed down. Now, to get to my point, the town meeting that took place last month on the so-called Rose development of a lodge, personally I think it's a bad idea for Port Clinton to add another big ugly building to the lakeshore. And in this case, probably many. Okay, that's not in my statement. Okay, I'm ad-libbing. In any future, okay, wait a minute, okay. It may be a good time for Mr. Rose and his developers, or a good thing for Mr. Rose and his developers, but I believe it will damage any future for the downtown area. Mr. Rose and his associate used terminology used by many good salesmen over the past to get what they wanted, without any concrete promise of the well-being for the community that it invades. So many communities are fighting for green space in cities around the country, and you want to build another huge obstruction to the lakeshore. This can only add to more pollution to the lake and to the community. It is time for the City of Port Clinton to enforce the laws already on the books against the owners of blighted properties in the downtown and West End areas to make the improvements to their properties that have caused this area to depreciate in its values. I would like to bring the Council's attention to Ordinance 1327.08, General Exterior Maintenance Requirements, which defines that some of the structures in the downtown and residential properties are not in compliance with the law. I would also like to know who the property maintenance officer is in Port Clinton. Also, see Ordinance 1327.14, etc. In closing, some of the colleges in the state of Ohio do offer classes on urban ecology, environmental science, which covers a sustainable environment. Perhaps our city officials are looking in the wrong direction and should consider and reconsider whatever this council allows that will affect the future generations of Port Clinton. Perhaps we should tap these young minds that are so creative and knowledgeable about global warming and restoration of green space in communities. Maybe, just maybe, we should do some research without the aid of costly, inappropriate development. Port Clinton has, in the past, and now has its own unique identity of a small lakeshore community. It does not need another building along the lakeshore. Perhaps Port Clinton should seek a restoration project that would promote long-term ecotourism that would enhance our community rather than making it look as though it was thrown together as a last-minute fix-it project. There are many properties that look abandoned in our community that should be addressed and occupied before we add more structures. I ask the council to view the 4-part documentary that it's called Eden's Lost and Found, which shows you how many different cities around the country, okay, that have been blighted, and they're slowly restoring them, and actually people are going to them. This waterfront is very important. You can't keep on popping up buildings all over the dang place. Excuse my language. But, you know, you've got more condos than you need. You know, and then I hear all these people that don't live here, you know, around, you know, year round. I live here year round. I don't want to look at some stupid, ugly buildings. I don't, you know, when I come in Port Clinton, I don't go all the way up to Fremont Drive or whatever it's called and then go to my house. No, I come down Lakeshore Drive so I can see the water. When it's nice, I roll down my window so I can smell the stinky fish and so I can hear the wonderful water and the waves hitting. You know, even going down Perry Street, I'm always looking, you know, I'm keeping my eye on the road, but I'm still looking at the water. It's beautiful, and it's being destroyed. You know, the more buildings you put on that property, make it green. Bring people here because it's beautiful. Get your imaginations out of your back pocket. Get off of them. Get off your heinies and get out there and make this park beautiful, what it can be. It can have a beautiful small amphitheater. It can be someplace that people want to come and see. You guys made the mistake, and I don't know who was here when they put in Walmart, and when they moved the ferry line, they took it out of downtown. They made people walk. You know, they used to come to the stores downtown. And I have seen improvements. I know how hard these business owners are working to try to stay afloat. Open your eyes. We don't need another big developer. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm sorry.
Mr. Norgard, you had your hand up?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be brief, Madam Chairman. Just to elaborate on what the mayor said, that agreement is being rewritten by Mr. Grant. And he has become more flexible, and that is reflected in our proposal. Number 2, I promised not to kill or shoot Alex. And then number 3, I just want to thank Ms. Benko for bringing the lighthouse issue before the full council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Finke?
Don Finke, 222 Adam. Since development in the last year seems to be the topic tonight, I have a question for all council members. What have you done in the last year to either promote or procure industrial development for the city of Portland? Anything? Obviously not. The citizens ought to be really encouraged by that. Second of all, yes.
John, if I may, I think that one purpose of the Economic Development Fund that we just set up is to look at all modes of economic development. And so we would certainly consider, for instance, if we establish the revolving loan fund program that we're talking about, making loans to any type of business owner who wants to do something within the city limits and other
in the industrial phase of it.
Could benefit any type of business, yes.
Again, the citizens ought to be encouraged about that. Another thing I would like to bring up, an occurrence of yesterday. Yesterday morning, the Toledo News reported that the gas prices were going down in Toledo. On the 6 o'clock evening news, the Cleveland reporters reported that the gas prices were going down in Cleveland. What happened in Portland? The gas prices went up 10 cents. Is it any wonder that the business people have such a concern? Thanks.
Mr. Norgard, you need to state your name and address for the clerk. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Richard Norgard, 1516 Edgewater Drive.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening?
Seeing none other, I will ask for a motion for this council to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation, I'm sorry.
So moved, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Second. Thank you, Ms. Bento. Any discussion?
Hey, how you doing?
Excuse me, audience, the official business hasn't concluded yet of this meeting. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ron Armstrong.
Yes.
Deborah Banko. Kathy Mountain.
Yes.
Mike Snyder.
Yes.
Art Copler,
Yes.
Randy Lipstrom.
Yes.
Nicole DeFreitas.
Yes. Thank you. Council will take a 10-minute break and go into executive session. I want to thank the Weeblos for hanging on as long as they did. And I want to thank you for your manners, which you showed far better than some members of our board. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for having us.